Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome to Double Take with John and Alex Safey. I'm Alex. I'm here with my brother John. John, what's up?
What's going on? We're back. It's been far too long. Final season is over, and we're at winter break right now.
Finally, John. I know you were focusing on your finals today. You had 2 exams for a while. I finished my last essay, turned it in at the buzzer, of course, last minute.
Yeah,
and we have been.
We can think about the better finals, the NBA finals.
That's right. We've been really looking forward to finally doing our NBA preview. So of course we brought on he's our college basketball and NBA draft expert, but of course he can talk about it all. So we brought back the one, the only Eli Mallouhi. Eli, what's going on, bro?
What's going on, guys? I'm glad to be back. Thank you guys for having me again. Congratulations on finishing up your finals, and I'm ready to get into it.
Let's do it.
Love it. So before we get into this first topic today, let me run through some of the things we're going to talk about. This is our full NBA preview, NBA season preview 2020 to 2021. We're going to talk about who won the offseason, the free agent moves, the trades, maybe draft moves that happened. Then we're going to talk about who are the surprise sleepers, teams to look out for this year that will overperform. And then, of course, which teams do we think will underperform this season? Then we got to get into our NBA Finals picks. I know we made those actually, John, in our last episode after the last game of this year's NBA Finals, but maybe it's changed since the offseason. Then we're going to talk about the East playoff race, the West playoff race, and who will win the NBA MVP this year. But first, the issue that the most important topic that we've all been talking about a lot, especially in our group chat with our friend Eli, is should the Miami Heat trade for James Harden? Today there was a report according to the Sun Sentinel that Miami is no longer engaged with Houston on a potential Harden deal. Eli, my first question to you, is that true? I know you have some inside sources. Is that true? And number 2, should the Heat still pursue Harden?
Okay. We're getting to the time of year, 3 times of the year where nobody should believe anything. Or the day or 2 before the draft, the week or so before the regular season, and about 2 days before the trade deadline. Nothing you hear matters. It's all It's all people, throwing things out to make a point, to lower the price, to higher the price. Everything's got an agenda. I think that there is 0% chance that the Heat are totally out. And that goes for anybody that would have said it. Do I think he's going to end up on Miami? We'll get there in a second. I don't know. Whether he does or doesn't matter to the context of this question based on this report. There is no way that Pat Riley, was on the phone, with Tillman Fertitta and the GM, Rafael Stone, and was like, you know what, guys, don't call me again. I'm done. Literally no way.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that it's not.
Wait, let me be devil's advocate. What if Rafael Stone is saying, I need Hero, I need Robinson, I need Kendrick Nunn, I need 3 first-round picks. Maybe he was asking for Precious too. Maybe so. Let's say he was just asking for way too much. Then what do you think? You think there's a chance that Riley would say no at that point, or no?
So I think there's a difference between saying no and being no longer engaged. Of course, Riley said no. That's how any kind of negotiations work. The first time the Heat called, Rafael Stone probably asked for everything, and Pat Riley probably said, "We'll give you Andre Iguodala and a 2022 second round pick." That's how negotiating works. And then eventually you go, and you meet in the middle if a deal ends up working out. So of course Riley said no, and of course Rafael Stone said no, and Tillman Fertitta and all those other guys. Of course they've been saying no, but to say we're no longer engaged to me means we're no longer calling you, we're no longer accepting calls from you, and we're so far apart that there's literally no point. And I don't think that that's really possible for any of these teams that are even remotely being talked about. There's no way.
Okay, so since we've talked about this before, I know me and Eli are farther on each side of the spectrum for the question of should Miami go for Harden. John, let's start with you then. What do you think Miami should do? What do you think overall about the whole situation?
All right, yeah. So there's a few things about this. First, I want to get on my soapbox really quick and just completely destroy James Harden for what he's doing. It's disgusting what he's doing to the sport of basketball, to the city of Houston, to that organization, to the players on his team, to the guys who have like PJ Tucker, who've been there through it with the trenches with him all these seasons, and now you just leave him out to dry like that. Horrible look. You should at least show up. And I think eventually that is why he did report finally for the preseason, because they told him, listen, you want to get traded? Well, these teams, Miami's calling, and they want to see what you look like on the court. And I'm glad that we did see that because he looks horrible. He looks just fat. Obviously, everyone saw that picture that was on Reddit and Twitter and whatever. He looked fat. He's out of shape. You know, his defense is horrible. Obviously, it's the preseason. We're not going to judge him there because, you know, that's where we judge him the most.
He's not
in the
trying.
Playoffs.
He's not trying.
He isn't. But to answer your question, Alex, I'm getting off my soapbox. Should the Miami Heat trade Tyler Hero, you know, our 20-year-old stud? He's not even 21 yet. For a 31, right? Harden's up at 31 right now. For a 31-year-old aging MVP, if it's straight up, the answer has to be yes, because we're trying to take advantage of Jimmy Butler's window right now. We know that we could have 15 years of Hero and Bam, but guess what? The league and the talent is just going up and up and up. They're going to be going up against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown every year, and you know the Raptors are always going to throw together a nice core of dudes with Siakam, of course. Now, if he can come back and be the guy that he was before the bubble, and of course, it's just always good organization. Trae Young and the Hawks are coming up. Simmons and Embiid and the Sixers. I don't think the Nets will be around for as long.
And out west, you got
stars.
You got Jamal Murray and Jokic, so there's a lot of young duos.
And you know Anthony Davis will be on the Lakers even after LeBron retires. So
and you haven't even mentioned Milwaukee yet. They got
and I haven't talked about Giannis. So the thing is, you have to go all in now. This team was a couple injuries away from perhaps winning the title. So I think this year, running it back again and hoping that KZ Okpala is gonna, you know, end up being the finals MVP or whatever. Like, we know that we weren't good enough to get over the hump.
Don't sleep on him.
Or he could be. But we know we're not, as we are constructed, we're not good enough to get over the hump. But we know that we're very close. We know we're capable of. We knocked off Milwaukee. We knocked off Boston. We took the Lakers to 6 games. We know how good we are. Harden puts us over the top. And I just want to make sure that he's healthy, he's in the right mindset, and he won't butt heads with anyone. So that's my response. Do we do it for Hero? We have to do it.
Eli, your thoughts?
I agree. Okay. I agree with the last part you said. I think, and I guess this is at this point somewhat controversial, I don't think Harden needs to be trashed as much as you do. He does. He's not done everything right. Not even close.
I mean, the strip club. He's in the strip club.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, forget just 2-second soapbox, not basketball related. Like, that's beyond basketball. Okay, like, we're in a global pandemic. Get out of the strip club a week before you're supposed to be, you know, at work. Essentially, like I work too. Like, I'm not going out to the club right now and then working with the kids I work with. Like, just not the time and place. Okay? I don't care what you do normally. Go ahead, whatever. Go to strip club all you want.
Right.
But so be safe, everybody. But like, beyond that, which is not basketball related, has he been perfect? Not a chance. Not even close, right? Has he done anything that's that much worse than almost any other superstar that's ever asked out? Probably not. And again, like, it's all going to be, you know, bits and pieces. Like, yeah, you might think so, I might not. Like, it's all subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that different than what he did than Anthony Davis, for example, right? But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I think the biggest people to blame are the Rockets, and it always has been, because and it also depends on what you believe in what's being leaked out and what's being told to the media, and, you know, whatever, about James being a bad teammate or about the Rockets letting him go to Vegas on off days. Like, depends on what you believe and who's talking where and, you know, whatever. But from all accounts that we've heard is, like, the Rockets gave him everything he wanted. They spoiled him. And now that things aren't going well, they expect him to be like the goody two shoes. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, whose fault is that? It's both, right? Like, at the end of the day, I think it's both. And by nature of it being both, to go on a massive soapbox about how James Harden's a disgrace to basketball, I love you, John, but a little too far, in my opinion.
Oh, my gosh. You know, this could be a whole episode of me.
Yes, it could. So now, moving on from that, just defending James Harden, even just ever so slightly. But back to the Miami question, should Miami trade Tyler Hero for James Harden? I love Tyler Hero a lot. I'm literally wearing, on the YouTube guys can see, my favorite shirt ever, the Tyler Hero snarl from the finals game. Like, I love Tyler Hero. But guys, are we kidding me? This is like Tyler Hero is awesome. He is 20 years old. He's improving. He showed out on the biggest stage. X, Y, and Z. All of these things. Do you guys know who James Harden is? Do I have to go through his accolades? I don't think I do.
On the wrong side of 30. That's what he is.
Yeah, he's on the wrong side of 30, but he's not 40. He can still play basketball. He was like the third MVP last year, I think. I think he finished third or fourth, something like that. Like, by himself with nobody around him, he's a 6 seed, right? You throw Jimmy Butler and Bam around him. You throw some heat culture. You know, we love to say that. You throw like the shootings. I don't think that he'd do it for Duncan at the end of the day. I think he's the one, like he's like the final, like the cut line, because of the shooting that we're gonna need around Bam, Butler, and then James Harden with the basketball. So that's where I would draw the line. Like, this is James Harden. Like, is there any better trio, honestly, in the, like, okay, maybe the Warriors, probably, but besides the Warriors, what was the better trio ever? I would take this trio. I mean, LeBron it's tough because LeBron is like LeBron. I 100% get that. But all three of these guys, and I love Bosh. My friends know, shout out Dave and Pete and Bilal, the guys I argue with all the time. Like, Chris Bosh is a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it, right? Chris Bosh is awesome. Chris Bosh is worse than any of these 5 other guys that we're listing now. So, like, is it right up there? It's right up there. James Harden is that good. Like, I don't even think it's a question.
You're saying greatest trio, like, ever.
No, okay. I mean, like, in the last, like, 15. I mean, like, you could go back to, like, the 80s and have, like, McHale and the Larry Bird ones, like, given the saturation of the league.
I get what you're saying, though.
But maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, but this is an unbelievable, trio, right?
Definitely.
All right.
Especially right now. What trio is better right now?
Let me respond, Eli. So I think the difference between kind of how I see things and you see things is you would definitely try to maximize this Jimmy Butler window at, like, pretty much at all costs, really. If Tyler Hero's probably, I mean, he's not our most valuable asset. It's probably Bam, and then maybe Jimmy, because Jimmy's still better than Tyler right now. But as far as, like, Tyler Hero he's like our Amazon stock. I'm not trying to sell our Amazon stock to maybe have a chance. Like, in my opinion, I think getting James Harden probably, if we don't make the finals and if we trade for James Harden, we don't make the finals, that'd be a failure. So yeah, we'd probably be favored to go to the finals. But even then, like, I don't think that we're winning. So I really want to, like, John, as you said earlier, 15 years of Hero and Bam. I think Bam is going to be the best center in the league within 5 years. And
him and Jokic.
Yeah.
5 years, right around the end of Jokic's probably prime, so I get it. But him and Jokic will.
And I think Bam is more versatile because he's better on defense too, and he's more athletic. So Bam is still so young. Is he even 24 yet? I think he's still 23. So he's so young. Tyler's 20. He's 20, and he just had. I said this to you guys in the group chat. I said, does Tyler Hero already have more signature playoff moments than James Harden? I mean, he dropped 37 against Boston. He had a ton of huge shots against Milwaukee when we did our gentleman's sweep. And I think of Harden's moments, I think, he got benched in Game 6 of the 2015 semifinals.
That's just because the microscope is on him so much more. I love Tyler Hero. He was horrible in the entire finals.
Okay. He's also.
I get it. Listen.
We want to talk about James Harden's first finals too. We can do that.
No, I know. But this isn't me just, like, trashing Tyler Hero. That's the last thing I would ever do.
20 years old.
Saying is, I know. I get it. But what I'm saying is, like, when the microscope is on, you're gonna remember those moments more. James Harden has still been really good, and I will say,
I can't remember any of the good ones. Tell me what was a good one?
No.
He blocked. Alex, who did he block at the end of the game?
Alex, you are pointing to the second round series in Milwaukee.
He got outplayed by Lou Dort, by the way, and then he blocked.
Okay. No, that it was.
Lou Dort dropped 30 that night.
Yeah, it was the only time he's hit more than, like, 2 threes in a game. One guy can have hot shooting every once in a while, but not the point. Okay, here's my big thing about Hero over Harden, okay, or Hero just in general, because we've also had this argument where we were like, okay, who is, like, the worst player you would trade Tyler Hero for, right? I texted the guys, these two guys, the list of, like, the ESPN top rank, whatever, which is a horrible list, by the way, but
it is terrible.
it's it's at least like generally there. Like they didn't
Yeah.
let someone like 40 spots off, except for I think DeMar DeRozan. Him at 82 is absurd. He's much better. But like generally speaking, it's at least like a decent barometer. And like, where is like the worst player that you would like trade him for? And I had it right about like where they had like 23, 24. It was like Siakam and Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
And there was a couple guys like Ja and Zion were a little lower or whatever. Like, okay, like the rookies who aren't there yet.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it was like right around 23 to 24. And for Alex, it was like 7. Like,
Because
let me ask you this. Here's
it
the
wasn't
best.
7. It wasn't 7.
I know. I'm exaggerating a little, but it was like 11, 12. You said no to Jason Tatum. I hate Jason Tatum. I'm a Celtics hater.
Yeah,
but
and
you telling me you wouldn't have Jason Tatum right now?
listen,
Like Jason Tatum's 22 and he's done the same things.
Tyler Hero's 20 years old and he's more.
And Tatum's 22.
And all Tatum does is chuck up mid-rangers. So yeah, if you want to say I'm biased for that, I don't really care. I just personally, I don't think Jason Tatum's that good. I think he's overrated anyway. But my thing with Harden is I don't think it guarantees us a championship. So at the end of the day, what am I saying? Would I rather maybe go to like another 2 or maybe 3 finals and if we get lucky and win one of those in the next 3 years? Because Harden's window is probably 3 years with Jimmy Butler. Or have the next 10 to 15 years of Bam and Hero, like that's what you have, and then trust the organization to maybe build around them. And at that point, I would just do that. I'm not willing, and I will say I do. It's the sentimental value of Hero. I would hate after this beautiful rookie year, the best rookie season, Dwayne Wade, the best rookie season since Dwayne Wade, and then we'd have to trade him. And let's say we don't know, like let's say he turns into Devin Booker or better than Devin Booker, and now we have to watch him the next 10 years. And like imagine the Harden thing doesn't end up panning.
And that's why I'm with you.
That would suck. That would suck. So I'm just like, all right, screw it. I don't want to risk it. Why would we risk it?
We need a guarantee on Harden coming, buying into the culture, wanting to win, getting his body fat down, and all the other key.
He always has though. That's never been.
I trust the culture.
Okay.
We would maximize James Harden. Absolutely.
Final points. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Eli.
I have one question and then a final point. One like just
final point I was gonna say is everyone just say do the Heat get Harden? If not, which team gets him? But go ahead.
I have one quick point though that like I was listening to some podcast or something and like this was kind of what like really set it over the edge to me. I love Tyler Hero, right? I'm gonna preface that. Tyler Hero's best case scenario, right? Absolute best case scenario. Is he good enough to be the second best player on a championship team, in your opinion? Just yes or no with maybe one sentence describing.
Best case? Yeah, I'm not putting a ceiling on him. You probably think no, though, right?
Okay, John, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, no, if it is a best case scenario, could I?
Let's say 90% of best case. Okay, let me just rephrase because you were right. Like best case, you could say anybody ends up becoming it.
Maybe he's Klay Thompson. Best case, you know.
I don't think so. Okay, I think Tyler Hero is awesome, and I think he's an all-star potentially, and like I can go on and on and on. But is Bam and Hero going to be what wins you a title in the next 10 years? Those two guys, and then obviously the periphery pieces. I don't think the answer is yes. I do think that they're going to need a third guy, in which case right now it's Jimmy, right? And that's why I think we can win right now. But if you don't think that Tyler Hero can be the second best or best, depending on how you feel about Bam, the second best or best player on a championship team, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. You trade him for somebody who can, while you have 2 other guys that you can say that about. And you won't have that.
Well, what would happen if let's say he's not the second best. What happens?
Where are you going to get the second best?
What happens when Zion wants out of New Orleans and he comes to Miami? Now we have.
How are you going to get him?
Hero. We have Hero. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to do pull LeBron, Anthony Davis.
Yeah, but then if you're paying Bam and Tyler, and then you got to get all the other veterans over there, are you going to be able to have? It's not a guarantee to say maybe Zion leaves. You're talking about maybe Zion leaves 7 years from now, like.
Yeah, I'm half joking, but I don't even care if it's.
I think the point is this, Alex. You're favoring the fact that this
the future.
This 6'5", 190-pound, 20-year-old kid has all the upside in the world after how great he's looked in his first season. Eli, you're saying, I'm taking what I know for sure. I'm taking Harden right now. I think I am siding with you, but listen, I'm still going to be extremely happy if we can keep Hero and develop him because he's got that dog in him, and we know he's going to be great for the years to come. So,
all right, so where do you guys think Harden ends up?
If I had a gun to my head, I feel like, again, like I said, it's not going to be one of the Philly, Brooklyn top teams. I think on our last pod I said it's going to be like a low-key Toronto sneaking in to get Kawhi type of team. So I don't know who that is. I think Miami seems like the choice because I think we can offer probably one of the best packages if it's Hero and Picks and Kendrick Nunn or Precious or whatever.
They're not getting Ben Simmons, so
I could see it being the Heat. Gun to my head, I guess I'm going with the Heat.
Alex, what about you?
I do trust the Heat, and I think I agree with what John said. I don't think Simmons is on the table, so I actually do think Pat Riley would pull the trigger, and that we'd be able to do it. We have enough picks and young pieces around Tyler here that we wouldn't have to give up Duncan Robinson. But to just be fun, I'm going to say the New York Knicks.
All right, Eli, you.
I think it's Philly. I think you're both wrong.
You think they do it for Simmons though?
Yeah, I do.
I think they're crazy.
I like Simmons a lot, and we're gonna get into that.
I do too,
later,
and I do too,
right.
and I'm gonna be on your side. I already know where this is gonna go. I think.
Cool.
And I'm gonna be on your side, but.
And one last thing. Okay, go ahead.
At the end of the day, I think he's in Philly.
One last thing. Which team should it be is a different question. I think the Milwaukee whose
Bucks.
name got thrown out there. They should go Shaq and Kobe, Harden and Giannis. I'm just saying that team's winning a title, you know it. So
yeah, I agree with that. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
I think it works for Harden. He wants to go play there, and for the Bucks and Giannis. All right, but we did spend a little more time than we even wanted to on that one, but it's important. We're all Heat fans. We're too overly emotional about talking about the Heat. But next, guys, back to things where we can be a little more rational. Who won the offseason? A lot of trades and moves. At the top of the list, CP3, one of the biggest stars that got traded. He's in Phoenix with Devin Booker now. Our boy Jay Crowder left Heat culture. He's with them too. They made some good moves. They're going to be on the rise. Westbrook went to the Wizards. The Lakers, upgraded all their role players. They got Montrezl Harrell from the Clippers, Marc Gasol, Dennis Schroeder, Wes Matthews. They upgraded. They re-signed Kyle Kuzma. We could talk about that deal maybe. Philly, of course, gets Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey. They got Seth Curry. They got Danny Green. They got rid of Al Horford. That's the team I'm probably going to talk about. And Milwaukee, who can ignore this? They just extended Giannis, one of the best talents we've seen in the past, probably ever, actually. $228 million deal for 5 years, most expensive NBA contract. Who do you guys think won the offseason? Alex, I'll start with you before we get to Eli.
Yeah, so I think you can't even consider Milwaukee because they have to be the answer. The fact that they re-signed a guy who a lot of people, especially us, we've been talking about Giannis to Miami for a while. The fact that they re-signed him and he's probably – you talk about trade value in the league right now today, he's one or two. Maybe Luka, then him. He's a back-to-back MVP. He could be the first three in a row MVP since Larry Bird in the 80s. So I think they have to be the first option, but I'm going to actually say the Lakers are my real pick because they're the champion and they got better. How often do we say that about a champion? And then they really did. I just think they got better. Not only that they got Montrezl Harrell, they took Montrezl Harrell away from the Clippers, who I think the Clippers are going to miss him a lot. They got Gasol. Okay, well, maybe we'll talk about it.
I'm not a Montrezl guy. Everything else I agree. Montrezl is the one that I don't agree, but continue.
Well, so, but he's just going to be good for their bench unit. And as LeBron ages and LeBron's going to want to play less minutes in the regular season, who's going to be running the offense? You got Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl doing the pick and roll, easy money. Marcus Gasol, top of the key, just,
one more thing, Alex, on Montrezl. I wanted to ask you, Eli, though. Didn't you see a time where you thought Montrezl was the guy, like where he looked great? Not even 2 years ago on that team that took the Kevin Durant Warriors to 6 games in the first round.
He's great for what he is. And I have a feeling we're going to talk about this a little later, like the broad picture thing. But I think that there's a massive, massive difference between regular season players and playoff players. And I don't think Harrell is a playoff player. He can't shoot. He can't play defense. Where are you going to play him? Where are you going to play him even 25, 30 minutes in a playoff series?
And that's why they have Gasol.
You're not.
That's why they have Gasol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so then, Eli, who do you think won the offseason?
So I have 2 teams. One of them we just talked about was the Bucks, and I agree. So we'll keep that a little shorter. At the end of the day, they re-signed Giannis. They got Drew Holiday. I think everybody's trashing the Bucks a little too much because they could have done more with like the Bogdan thing and like.
And now today we just announced they lost the second round pick 2022 for that.
They're going to be picking 57 overall or something. But I think they're getting a little too much, flack for like what could have been, and that's definitely true. They definitely could have done a little bit better given the circumstances. They traded a lot for Drew, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But they got Giannis, they re-signed Giannis, and they got Drew. No brainer. The other team, I think, and you guys actually didn't list them, is Dallas. I think Dallas won the offseason as well because they surrounded Luka with guys that fit better than they did before. I think our boy, I love him and I miss him, but Josh Richardson
Yes.
is one of
Jay
my
Rich.
favorite, just like player fits of anybody in the offseason. Not a superstar, he's not an all-star, nothing like that, whatever. But a defensive wing that can like stand still and hit a three is exactly what needs to be put next to Luka. Josh Green is in the same mold. I didn't really like him. I forget if I said that in the draft pod or not, but I didn't really like him that much. But he fits the mold, and who am I to say that the Mavericks aren't right, because they've been right more often than not. Like, they've just done some periphery stuff that I think just make a lot of sense for like building for like what they could be in the future. So I would say Dallas. And the other thing that I thought of, I just think the Eastern Conference. I think everybody in the East got better, save for Boston, maybe, mostly because of the Kemba injury, and we'll probably get that at some point. But everybody else in the top 6 or 7 either stayed the same or got better, in my opinion. So I would just say the East in general, it's been the laughingstock forever. But if you give me 1 to 6, East versus West, I think at least it's a question now, and it never has been. So I would say the Eastern Conference just in general.
Yeah, for Eli, I'm definitely with you. The Eastern Conference a lot better, and that's what we're going to talk about the Raptors soon. That's why I think the Raptors are going to be worse, because I think they stay the same. But I also agree with you, Dallas. I mean, I loved them last year. I love Luka, and just right now, probably like gun to my head, favorite non-Miami Heat player. I think he's my favorite player. He's awesome to watch. Fun
That's a good
guy.
question. Who's your favorite non-Heat player?
Non-Heat player, yeah. So he's up there. I love putting Josh Richardson because me and Alex have the same argument. Who's like the guy they need? And in my head, I was like trying to make basically Frankenstein make this player before thinking of who it actually was. And it's exactly what you said, Eli, like a 3-and-D guy, could put next to him. It's kind of like putting a Klay Thompson guy next to Steph. Like Luka needed that guy next to him. And I think Richardson.
And obviously, he's not as good as Klay, but like
he's
the
like a
mold is
poor
there.
version.
Big defensive wing, can shoot. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, more so than like Trey Burke. Seth Curry, awesome. I loved him, and that's why it's the other team that I'm high on now is the Sixers. I think just the fact that they got Daryl Morey, where he is like doing his homework day in, day out. He's clocking in, he's putting in the hours, and he's like every possible trade that could come their way or good move they can make to make them a contender. He's already thought about it 10 times over. So I think that's number one. Doc Rivers. People have been very critical of his coaching career after blowing 3-3-1 leads. The first coach, I guess, to ever do that ever. But I do think with 2 young guys, Embiid and Simmons, he's a good guy that you want. He's been to the finals. He's been around the block. He knows what it takes in this league, and that's a guy replacing Brett Brown. So just from those 2 things alone, love it. Now you got rid of Al Horford, who I don't know.
That was a terrible contract. Terrible. I don't know how they unloaded it.
I hopped on this bandwagon last year, like the Sixers, and I'm kind of embarrassed about the Sixers would be like the best team just because they were so loaded. But I didn't get it. When they traded for Al Horford, the first thing I said was like, or not traded. Was it trade? Signed
No,
and
they
trade?
signed. No. They signed.
They signed him.
Agency. Yeah, the first thing I said was like, why does he want to play next to Embiid? And 2, why would the Sixers, and even Embiid, if you're checking with your stars, hey, we're going to sign Al Horford. Why is Embiid saying, why would you sign a guy who's the same exact size and similar skill set, same position, whatever? It's like, it just was a weird fit. Like, you got him to be a stretch 4. Like, that's not where he's maximized. So I think he's maximized when he's with a team like Boston, which whatever, because he's on OKC now, it doesn't matter. But it was awesome. And I know Daryl Morey, I think, told Bill Simmons a few years ago on a podcast, if I was just a team starting from scratch, that's how I would do it, was basically tell all the teams with bad contracts, hey, give me a first rounder and I'll take your bad contract. And that's what OKC is doing. And they've been like that was the overworked Twitter joke of the offseason, was how many draft picks the Pelicans and especially the Thunder have had. So it's super funny, but that's why I'm with them. They also got Seth Curry, awesome shooter, looked great in the playoffs. Danny Green. I think Philly just great core to put around Ben Simmons and Embiid.
Yeah, well, all those offseason moves, and now we're gonna all see what it happens and how it culminates in the regular season. So that being said, there's a lot of teams. Every year there's a team that surprises some people. Last year is probably maybe Memphis. Memphis shocked some people. They came out and they were almost in the playoffs, and no one. I thought they were going to be like one of the worst teams in the league last year. They surprised some people. So every year there's a surprise team. Who do you guys think are the sleeper teams for this year? Let's start with Eli.
Okay, so I think that I don't necessarily see too many, and I know that's kind of like the whole idea of a sleeper team is a team that you don't see coming.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like paradoxical in that way. But like I don't really see like a team like in the Memphis type mold necessarily that like is like a lower level team that I think is going to be like bumped up. In fact, I think some of the ones that people are talking about, like maybe like the Pelicans or the Grizzlies again, or like the Hawks, so I think like are right around the bottom of the East. But like I don't think those teams. I think I'm lower on those teams than anybody else. So the kind of way that I looked at it is like, which teams do I think are like just going to be better than people think, regardless of where they were. And the first team that I think of, and me and these guys have talked about it a bunch, is the Toronto Raptors. I don't understand for the life of me where all of this Raptors slander ever comes from. Okay, they were the number 2 seed in the East last year, okay? And yeah, they might have overachieved a tiny bit based on like the talent you see on their roster, but that's the same thing that us Heat fans have been hearing for the last couple of months is the talent overachieved, whatever. At what point is it the talent didn't overachieve and we're just underrating the talent? So I'll start there. They're unbelievably deep. They lost Ibaka and they lost Gasol, absolutely. They got Baines.
Two huge losses.
I agree. They got Baines, who I think Marc Gasol at this point is like he's really just not that good. I think the name outweighs what he actually does, and that goes back to the whole Lakers. I think Montrez and Gasol are not. I mean, Gasol had a minimum contract is unbelievable, so that's different.
Yeah.
But I don't think Baines is that much worse than Gasol. I think he's a different player, but I don't think he's that much worse. And yes, you lose Ibaka. So I'm not saying they're going to be the 2 seed next year. We'll get to our East playoff pick soon. I don't think they're going to be a 2 seed, but they really didn't lose anything. They've got a bunch of young pieces besides Ibaka. They really didn't lose. They've got a bunch of young pieces that are going to only get better. They've got maybe the best coach in basketball, top 3 or 4 at least, and I think he's right around the 3-4 range. Like the Raptors have. You know what I heard the other day? They've hit the over on their Vegas total 6 years in a row. Every single year, somebody makes up a reason why the Raptors aren't going to be as good, and 6 years in a row, they've still gone.
Well, they're not going to do it for 7 years.
Maybe. But, like, if you look at this team, okay, the final point I'll make is just actually, like, now looking at the team, like, Lowry, Van Vliet, Anunoby, Siakam, Baines. That's a phenomenal starting lineup. Every single player is an unbelievable defender. They've got 2 stars at the very least in Lowry and Siakam. I think Anunoby is going to be this year's breakout star. Like, I don't know about star, like all-star level player, but like this year's like breakout, like, oh my gosh, where did this guy come from?
Yeah.
Van Vliet, just got paid like crazy and he's deserving of every penny. And then you get depth. Boucher, I think, is going to be a really good bench player. He's getting better every year. Norman Powell, I think, is one of the favorites for 6th man of the year with, I think, the amount of minutes that he's going to play. And I think he's just really good. I loved Malachi Flynn in the draft. He's going to be the backup point guard. Like, they go so deep with great coaching. They've got 2 all-stars. I must be missing something. And the only thing that I know that you guys, like, the major point that I can understand is, like, you looking at Siakam and saying, like, he wasn't good in the bubble. I have a major, like, problem with that, and we can get to that in a second if it fits anywhere. But Siakam specifically, he's kind of like, I can put him kind of in that, like, Montrez role where I can kind of see how, like, as a playoff guy, he might not be there yet. But this is not the playoffs. We're talking about the regular season. Does this team have the ceiling maybe of, like, winning a championship? Probably not. Can this team win the equivalent, I don't know what the equivalents are, whatever, of like 48 to 50 games and be a 4 or 5 seed? Absolutely, and I don't get it.
Yeah, so you make
Alex, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. You make a good argument, Eli. I think losing Ibaka and Gasol hurts a lot. And I think my fear for them, my worry for them, and maybe this is biased because I wanted them to beat the Celtics. I hate the Celtics, and Siakam let me down 7 games in a row.
Yeah, I agree.
So
No,
so
I think
there's
he had
that.
one. I think he had one good game. In the
Maybe he
playoffs.
might have had one okay
I think he
okay
did.
game. But anyway, so Siakam left a bad taste in my mouth. I do think that Van Vliet, as good as he is, and I love him. I love Wichita State. I really, he's one of my favorite players that's not in the Miami Heat in the NBA. But I think there's almost no way that he can get better, because when you're playing for a new contract, I just believe in that factor. I really do. There's that. And then here's what I will say: if OG Anunoby can make a jump like you think, and he would be a good, I could see him being most improved player this year. Then fine. Then they could be a 6th seed. Right now, I don't think the Raptors will be a 6th seed, and part of the reason is because I think that Indiana is actually like criminally underrated this season. Based on things I've been reading.
Indiana was the other team that I was going to talk about.
So good.
I agree with you.
I'll touch on them. Indiana last year was a 4 seed. Okay, so they're a top 4 seed in the East, and that's with Oladipo, who is prior to healthy seasons was an all-star in both of them, and over those 2 seasons averaged roughly 22, 5, and 5. So that was with Oladipo playing 19 games last year, which I honestly didn't even realize. He played only 19 games. So Oladipo was out.
And then the bubble. That doesn't count the bubble, but yeah.
No, that does. No, I think it does count the bubble. That was from Master Reference. Anyway. Or I guess it is. Yeah. So anyway, 19 games, and now you go and then the last time we saw them, that was with now Oladipo, who didn't even want to be in the bubble. He wasn't supposed to be there at first.
Yeah.
He was not very good in the 4 games that he played in the playoffs against the Miami Heat when we swept them. Brogdon, I thought, was their best player in that series, and
yeah, for sure.
that was without Sabonis last year was their best player. The reason they were a 4 seed was because Domantas Sabonis was an all-star, and that's something that surprised everyone. So now you have Sabonis coming back healthy. He's an all-star, and he's hungry, and he's young. You have Victor Oladipo after basically almost 2 years, because he was an all-star would have been 2019, but then he got injured that year, so he didn't even get to play in the all-star game. So now you
in a contract year, Alex.
And there you go, my contract year theory. You got Oladipo playing for a new contract, and he's trying to make a comeback from his injury. So that's 2 all-stars who are studs, and I think those 2 all-stars are better than the Raptors' 2 all-stars. Then you have Brogdon, who I think
You think those 2 are better than Lowry and Siakam?
Yeah, 100%. I'll take assuming if Oladipo plays like he did in the bubble, then of course no. But what I think Oladipo will be this year, and then that's the thing.
You're talking about half a season of Oladipo 3 years ago, before injury, and you're going to say he's better than Kyle Lowry?
It was not 3 years ago, and
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
No. All right, I mean, we'll see if Oladipo is better than Lowry this year. That would be funny. Anyway,
I'm rooting for him too.
I think he will be. I'm not rooting for him. But then now you have Brogdon, who is a stud, and he's a perfect player on that team for that fit. And TJ Warren, say what you want. Maybe people. I know Eli, you don't trust the bubble as much, and people want to talk about it's an empty gym, all this stuff. He dropped.
I'm a Warren believer. Enough.
Yeah,
enough. I mean, not an all-star, but he's a good player.
He can give you 20 points a night, I think, or maybe 18. Like he's gonna be good. That's not even.
He averaged 19 last year.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. That's not even mentioning Miles Turner, who's all right. He doesn't fit them as well. But then you have the Holiday brothers on the bench, TJ McConnell, and they have. I really liked their coach last year, Nate McMillan. Now they have the assistant coach of the Raptors, who has said they're gonna play faster and shoot more threes. Yeah. And that was last year. I just read this today, like on the Ringer or something. They were one of the slowest paced teams. Yeah, they were super slow. So if you want to,
that's ironic. The Pacers.
Yeah, jumpstart that offense. So the Pacers are the team that I think are going to outperform a lot of people.
I agree with that too. I have them both like in the same, right around the same like.
So I'll tie it together, Alex.
A little ahead, but same thing.
I'll tie it together and then ask you this question, Eli, about the Raptors. So my pick, I already talked a lot about why I love the Sixers, what they did. They're my first pick. My second pick is the Wizards, okay? And I think they're getting overlooked. Bradley Beal, okay? We've had this argument before, Alex, with some of our other friends. Superstar, or what is he, a star, whatever. He averaged 30 points in the league last year, okay? And
I love Bradley Beal.
He's 26 years old, and he got snubbed from the All-Star game, and he was playing with no one else really on his team. Talking about Bradley Beal, he just got Russell Westbrook with him, okay, who was an MVP. People argue about that, but we know what Russell Westbrook brings to the table. He's going to be busting his ass day in and day out. He's going to be working hard. Yep. And look at who their coach is, Scott Brooks, a guy who knows how to coach Russell Westbrook with a 30-point-per-game scorer. And on top of it, I like their role players. There's I don't even know how to say his name.
Yeah.
Rui Hachimura.
Good. Thomas Bryant, of course, Davis Bertans. He's a sniper. He's 40+ percentage from 3-point land. And they also got Robin Lopez, he's just a tough guy who's gonna fight down low. I like them a lot. So I think Eli, what you have to sell me on is Alex just outlined the Indiana argument. We haven't talked about the Hawks, and we think they're gonna have some defensive issues with Trae Young in that backcourt. John Moran attacked them on defense the other night in the preseason, and that's probably the season's gonna look like for them. But the Hawks are definitely in there because they upgraded this offseason. So why are the Raptors, if the rest of the league got better, or I'm sorry, the rest of the East, you even said that, Eli, obviously the Nets and the Sixers and the Celtics are still there, and the Heat got better, the Bucks should be better. All those teams are up there. Why are you saying the Raptors will still be there? Or why are they at least head and neck above the Pacers, the Wizards, the Hawks? Because I think they're in the same group with those teams.
Name me at least 2 good defensive players on either of those rosters, the Hawks or the Wizards. The Hawks maybe have a couple, but can you name 2 good defensive players on the Wizards?
I mean,
Westbrook and Thomas Bryant.
Yeah. Westbrook.
Thomas Bryant's a horrendous defender, and Russell Westbrook is average at best. He's not that.
Thomas Bryant's he's gonna contest in the paint. I mean,
Robin Lopez.
Rolo, don't sleep.
He's going to play 10 minutes a game.
Oh, no, you're sleeping.
The only good defender on the Wizards is a guy you didn't even mention as a role player, Troy Brown, who I actually really like. He's a decent basketball player. He's the only good defender on the entire roster.
Wait, you're telling me Westbrook's not a good defender?
He's good to he's out of 10, he's a 5 or a 6. Okay, is that average? Okay, fine. Is that
Yeah,
is that what you're gonna? And this is also now you're talking about Westbrook being the second best defender on the team as a 5 or a 6. That team is going to be.
They're going to outscore everyone.
That team's going to be exciting. They're going to score a lot of points. But you know what we could have said? We said the same thing last year. They were 3rd or 4th in the NBA last year in offensive.
Come on,
they didn't have Russell Westbrook last.
Well, let me ask you this, and here's another question.
And again, this is a regular season thing. You can't not play defense. They're going to get killed. Every player of the Raptors are going to play. Every single one that steps foot on the court is going to be a plus defender.
Okay, Westbrook. Let me say, Westbrook and Brad Beal. Yeah. Listen. Westbrook and Brad Beal. I think any way you slice it, they're 2 top 25 players in the NBA.
Yeah, I agree. 25 to 30.
Tell me a team, any other team, I'm trying to think, that has 2 top 25 players.
That's missing the playoffs?
And that are missing the playoffs.
Where's D'Lo? I think he's a little lower.
D'Lo's probably not even top 25. But D'Lo and Cat would maybe be the other team.
And they're
in the West.
And what's the biggest problem with the Timberwolves besides being in the West?
Yeah, it's defense.
They can't play defense.
Okay.
And it's the same thing here. These teams look shiny when you look at them on paper and you look at the roster and you say, okay, they're pretty good. They've got all these decent players. He's a shooter, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes down to 48 minutes of basketball, who's going to defend? Literally nobody. That team's going to be horrendous. If you had to tell me the 5 worst defensive teams in basketball, it's those 2, it's Minnesota, it's Cleveland, and it's probably the Knicks. Those are probably the 5 worst defensive teams in basketball. You're going to put those ahead of the Raptors? Come on.
Have you used the Wizards in 2K21 yet?
I don't have
Let me know. Get back to me.
All right. We can move on now. Those are our teams that we think will overperform. Opposite question. Which teams do we think will underperform this season?
So a couple teams that I think are going to be worse than expected. 2 that I'll just touch really quickly on, and then there's 2 that I kind of want to talk about. I do think regular season-wise, and it's kind of funny because I said they were my biggest winner, but I do think Dallas is going to be a little worse in the regular season than people think because of injuries and because of a lot of young guys, the 2 rookies, Josh Green and Tyrell Terry, I think are going to play a little bit. Jalen Brunson and Dwight Powell are coming back from injury.
Oh, yeah.
So I think regular season-wise, a little bit. And then Boston, pretty much the same thing. I don't know what Kemba's going to look like when he comes back, if he does. I think losing Hayward is going to hurt, and I don't think they have any depth. But those are still – I have them both in the top 4 or 5 of their conferences. So a little bit, whatever. The 2 teams that I do really want to – the 2 teams that I want to talk about, one is just kind of funny. I think Oklahoma City is going to be even worse than people think they're going to be.
Wow.
Like the best way that I could look at this is like I looked at their Vegas over-under, right? And it's 21.5, which if you round it up to 22, that I did the math, that equals 25 games in an 82-game season, right? Just because that's the math that we're always
Yeah.
in what world is that roster winning 25 games?
Wait, hold on. I need to look at a depth chart.
Okay, here. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I forget who it was, but it was like two like big NBA minds, and it took them about 5 minutes to name 10 players on this team. Like, take a second. Let's do it on the podcast. Can you name the 10 players, the 10 main players on this team?
Lou Dort, bro. Lou Dort he's gonna be the most improved player this year. So actually, I'm betting on the over.
The point is, I think they're going to be worse. I'm telling you straight up. I don't know, like the gambling, but I am smashing the under. I'm genuinely going to put money on this.
Well, I like that.
Extra bad.
Okay, but
the other team that like I actually think is interesting to talk about, that I think is going to be worse than expected, is the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans are not going to be. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks they're going to be this like world beater anyway. But them in like the legitimate playoff talk doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Are they making the playoffs? Are they making the playoffs?
I have them. I couldn't decide when I was listing my top 10 teams. I couldn't decide between them or another team for the 10 seed. So they're 10-11.
So you did 10. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I did end up like tiebreaker. I did put them at 10, but like you ask me tomorrow and I'll tell you who my 11 team is later. And I think that they might have fit there, like whatever. Like they're right there. I just don't think it fits. Like they've got a bunch of young talent. They've got a bright future. They got a new young coach. They're just getting better, right? Like they're getting there. But I don't see the fit anywhere. What's Zion? I think Zion's best fit in the NBA is going to be as a small ball 5 surrounded by shooting.
Wow.
Other than Brandon Ingram, who by the way like had his best shooting year last year, but he hasn't been an unbelievable shooter. And I know he broke out. He won Most Improved Player. But he's the only plus shooter in the starting lineup. And then if you go to the bench, you add JJ Redick. Of course, he's one of the best in the NBA, no doubt. But other than that, they have no shooters. They have no shooters, and they have and I think, and we talked about this a little bit, like the move to me that made the least sense in the entire offseason, not the worst move because he's still a good player. I can't believe Mason Plumlee got $100 bajillion from.
I was about to say that.
That's the worst one, but the one that made the least sense to me is Steven Adams. It like if I had to pick the number one NBA basketball player that makes the least sense next to Zion, I will sculpt him like out of nowhere, and it looks exactly like Steven Adams. And they gave up a first round. I know they have $1 billion, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But they gave up a first round pick and extended him, which means
I didn't get the extension.
And what that shows me is
they believe in it.
They believe in him and they want to play him. So it's not like you can just say like, oh, they signed him. He's a veteran presence, defensive guy, whatever. It shows me that they're going to want to play him at the 5 and Zion at the 4. And it doesn't make any sense.
So you don't believe Zion's a stretch 4 then?
I mean,
he can play that role.
4.
I think he needs to play next to a shooter. Like, you want to put him at the 4.
You want the ball in his hands. Yeah, you want the ball.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, no. Ball in his hands. I'm talking more of a Giannis type. Like, I think that I agree with you because Adams can't shoot.
Where do you think Giannis fits best? I think the Bucks' best lineup is Giannis at the 5.
I agree, but Zion
is that they don't have another wing.
He's like the Shaquille O'Neal mixed with LeBron as a 5, and I think Zion's the same thing, and that's why I think Brook Lopez, if you really think about it in the basketball, context, whatever, he's really a stretch 4.
Yeah.
Because Zion, Giannis is the one down low, banging, posting up, whatever, driving past guys. I think you got to do the same blueprint with Zion. That's why I'm with you. Adams clogs up the paint a little bit too much. I just don't think it's I think it's worse if they don't have other shooters. If Lonzo and Josh Hart and Brandon Ingram are all knockdown shooters, I'm okay with Zion and Steven Adams, I guess.
Maybe.
And they have Redick too.
I still think that's wrong. But the other thing too is like who's a great defender. Like Brandon Ingram was horrible on defense last year. And he was, this Bradley Beal syndrome maybe, like he had to carry the offense. Zion was hurt, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I get
fair.
it. He might be a little bit better, but he was horrible, worse than he was even on the Lakers. Lonzo is good, but he's nothing special. Eric Bledsoe is good, but I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. Like, I don't know what his role on that team is going to be. Drew Holiday, they're losing now Drew. Like, I just think, like, defensively, they're not going to be that great. And offensively, they're not going to shoot. And then the final thing that I think, and actually, I realized I misspoke. I said they have a young new coach. I got them mixed up for a second. It's the opposite. I think Stan Van Gundy, their coach, is a great coach. But one thing that Stan has never done is he's always one of the, and we can know this from the Heat back in the day, he's always one of the slowest teams in basketball. And when the Pelicans went on their like ridiculous run right before the bubble, right? That like 20 games when Zion came back, they were like number 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that in like pace. They were unbelievably fast, but they were horrible in the half court. The thing is they just absolutely blitzed everybody when they ran. But now you have Van Gundy, who's never been fast. He's never had a top 10 fast, like paced offense in his career. Never won. He was 11th once in Orlando. I heard that stat the other day. So he's never been a top 10 like speed offense. And then now you're putting Steven Adams as your like main big man to not help you run. And then now you're taking away the only good thing that the Pelicans really had going for them over just a small 20-game sample size.
Yeah,
and they didn't really add anything else to get by there other than Zion being healthy, which is going to make up for it, of course, if he did stay healthy.
I definitely agree with all those points, and I think they're a team that their best 5 guys don't fit on the court. So could I make a good lineup out of their team? Because I think they have a relatively deep roster. I could make it, but those aren't the lineups that will be playing the most. So I agree. I don't have them in the playoffs. I have them at the 9 seed. The West is just too deep also. But I do think Zion's going to take a leap this year. Do we want to move on, or do you want to keep going with this one, John?
One quick one. I think I might have said on our last episode. I'm just curious, how good will Steph Curry be without his Robin? Without Klay Thompson there. So that's my team that I'm throwing out there. I wouldn't be stunned if the Warriors missed the playoffs. The same way, the West is very deep. The Pelicans not making it. We all think Zion is the next LeBron, whatever. They could definitely miss it. The same way I'm saying, I don't know how good Steph Curry is going to be without, last time we saw him, he was a super team Warriors with Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond, and all them. So we'll see what they look like.
Yeah, and then I guess a third team that's going to be gunning for that 8 seed, the Memphis Grizzlies. Also, they're going to be missing Jaren Jackson Jr. for I don't know how long because he tore his ACL in the bubble. So that's also another team that people might expect to take a leap, but maybe they won't be able to. So that 8 seed should be very interesting how that plays out. But let's get into the most important question of the whole episode, potentially in the whole season. Who do we think is making the NBA Finals, and who's going to win? So I want to hear. Why don't we each just run through maybe the top, what will the conference finals be in each conference, and then who's gonna win the finals? Let's start with our guest, Eli.
Okay, so so I'll start with the East. I think that, to me, it comes down to 3 teams. I'm not as much of a believer as John is in Philly. I think Boston is going to take a step back, at least until, they get Kemba healthy and, whatever. So I don't think they're in it. So I think it comes down to Miami, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn. And maybe it's the homer in me, but I'm going to say it's Miami as one of them. And then I think it's going to be Brooklyn. I am bought in. I am all in. I think Brooklyn has the depth.
Because he's from Jersey.
Maybe. I did grow up like as like my second favorite team was the Nets because my dad and I would just watch, Yes Network, which is like the local network, and just watch, Nets games all the time. The Kerry Kittles of the world back in like the 05, 06 years.
You're old.
Yeah, I am old. So maybe a little bit, but no, I mean, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, they've got depth everywhere. They are going to be really bad defensively. I agree. And I definitely, think that that's something that they need to work on. But here's why I think Brooklyn is going to be, at the end of the day, like one of the last, let's call it 4, conservatively speaking, with this argument, teams. Is I think they are going to make a move. they've been talked about with Harden. I don't see that one happening now that we start seeing all the other trade possibilities. I don't think their package is going to live up to that. But I think what this team is really missing is a defensive, like 3-4 wing hybrid kind of guy. And I don't know who that is off the top of my head. If I really thought about it, maybe I could give you one. I know one of my buddies is a big Nets fan. Shout out Bilal. He's talking about Aaron Gordon, maybe. Maybe even PJ Tucker. If not in a Harden trade, but a separate deal.
What about
something
Taurean
like that.
Prince? He's not good enough.
Yeah,
Hey,
sure.
he's actually like a 39% 3-point shooter.
Yeah, I mean Taurean Prince is fine, but you're not making the finals because you have Taurean Prince.
Jay Crowder.
I do think. I mean, yeah, honestly, he would have been perfect. But that's why I think like if this current Brooklyn roster I think is good enough, but what the roster I think definitely could look like, I think is more than good enough, and that's why I would pick Brooklyn as one of the teams, and then Miami would be the other. And I'm gonna be the homer and say whatever. Yeah, I think Miami is gonna make the finals, and then in the West, I mean, I don't see how anybody at this point could go against the Lakers. I want to be contrarian and kind of like say something and come up with something, but I really just can't. I mean, I think Lakers is like it just makes sense. I do think Denver is being slept on a little bit because I don't think the Jeremy Grant loss is as bad as people think.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about it so much. Like Jeremy Grant really wasn't that good. He just like showed up a little bit.
He's a good glue guy.
Yeah, he's fine. But like they were a couple games away last year. They're going to get some healthy guys back. Barton and Harris. Porter might make a jump. Like, I don't think they're that far behind. But at the end of the day, I can't pick against Lakers Clippers. So my final pick is Lakers over Heat. Let's get a repeat.
Johnny boy, what is your pick?
All right. I think, Eli, you're right. The East is much more fun to discuss than the West. However, I'm gonna switch it up. Don't love the Clippers and Kawhi as a leader. You just need a more vocal leader. Is Paul George that guy? No. So who's it coming from? With the Raptors, they had Kyle Lowry as the fiery dude, and Nick Nurse, of course, we know. With the Spurs have Greg Popovich. You can look no further than that. Is Tyronn Lue gonna be the guy? I mean, he's a low key kind of guy. He did do, of course, a great job with the Cavaliers, but he had LeBron there, so I'm not too confident in them. Who do I really like? The Mavericks. And if the only thing, my question mark, and the only thing that makes me sad is that they are injury prone. If Kristaps stays healthy, if Luka could stay healthy, sign me up for Mavericks Lakers right now. That would be so amazing.
I still think they're one piece away, but I'm with you.
I'm just concerned about the health. But but if I could say injury clause in there, Luka doesn't miss 15 games in the middle of the season where the team's gonna go 7-8 or something, then I'm gonna pick them. They'll be a higher seed. They'll have home court, and I'm gonna pick the Lakers over them. In the East, I think it's interesting because last year, obviously, what it was, Boston, Miami. We're throwing Boston out just because we think they didn't do enough to compete with all the upgrades that the East made.
And Kemba's health.
Right, and Kemba's health. So now we're keeping Milwaukee in there. What Milwaukee looked like the last time we saw them, a team that got swept or gentlemen swept, whatever. It was a near sweep. It probably should have been a sweep.
It was a sweep. That was a BS.
For a few calls.
Right.
They got swept by the Heat. Are the Heat worse this year, guys?
No.
I think we got to be at least as good.
They should be as good. So the Heat are going to be there. Brooklyn's better, and Philly's way better. So now, of those four teams, who do I like defensively? I like Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Matisse Thybulle. I like that team with Doc Rivers, defensively good coach. And the Heat, of course. Losing Crowder is going to hurt, but I do think Butler and Bam, they anchor it. Defensively, it's Coach Spo, of course. So if I had to pick just the two better defensively teams, I think I'm looking at a Miami versus Philly series. But what
about Milwaukee? Milwaukee's the best of all of them defensively.
But I was going to say this, but the way it breaks is interesting because if it's a 1-4 matchup again and it's Miami-Milwaukee, we have no reason to believe Miami's not going to do what they did again unless we really think, no, Jay Crowder was what got them over the hump.
Or you just say Drew Holiday is going to be the guard they really needed.
So that's the other thing. Did Drew Holiday get them over the hump that they needed to? Are they 4 games better? Are they not getting swept by Miami now because they got Drew Holiday? I don't know. So, gun to my head, Brooklyn's awesome. They're going to be fun. I love, like, Joe Harris, great glue guy, great role player, hitting threes, doing all that. Steve Nash, he's going to get the ball moving. He's not going to let the ball stick in Kyrie's hands. Hopefully, if, Kyrie doesn't implode the team like he did with the Celtics, they should be there. But obviously, defensively, we're looking at Kevin Durant as their best defender, and he's coming off of a bad, a torn Achilles. So that's why, for those reasons, I'm like, all right, Milwaukee hasn't given me unless Giannis and Middleton level up, which that could happen, and they could maybe not get swept now. But if we're just looking at what happened, I have to stick with Miami doing what they did again last year, and I have to stick with Philly. And then we're going from there. I picked Boston over Miami last year before the playoffs started. And again, I'm not going to pick my own team and jinx them. I'm going to go Philly. I'm going to go with the LeBron versus Simmons. That's the whole – and AD's in there too. They're all clutch sports clients. So I'm going to go with that finals. I think it's fun. We were supposed to see LeBron versus Philly in 2018 in the conference finals. We didn't get it. So that's what I'm going to pick this year.
Okay, so
Alex.
So the Western Conference, of course, I'm picking the Lakers to make the finals, but I do think the Clippers will finally get to the conference finals this year. Even though I don't think they're actually that much better than last year. I think they're probably about the same, but I don't think they're going to fall apart.
I think they're a better playoff team. That's what I think the difference is.
Because now you have a Serge Ibaka.
Oh, and by the way, guys, this happened while we were talking. They extended Luke Kennard 4 years, $64 million.
What the heck is that?
64?
64, $16 million a year.
They gave him the Marcus Morris contract.
What the heck?
Luke Kennard is really good, and I think he's actually a really big help for them because he can be like a secondary creator, which is kind of what they needed. But $60 million is a lot.
But why are they paying him and Morris combined $32 million, like 16 each?
Because you want to know why? Who's their owner? The owner, has more money than because it's all luxury tax.
Yeah, it is.
Like at this point, there's literally no difference.
It's monopoly.
As long as he's willing to pay it out of pocket, there's no difference between 10 and 16. That's the same thing with us when we signed Myers. Everyone was like, "Why'd you give him $10 million?" And it was like, because it doesn't even matter. Anyone else? And as long as Harrison's okay with spending it, go ahead.
So anyway, I got LA. I got the Lakers. They're gonna be the 1 seed. The 2 seed will be Denver. The 3 seed will be the Clippers, and the 4 seed will be Dallas. So looking at that for the second round should be really fun. I think the Clippers will beat Denver in the second round. Then the Lakers will beat the Clippers in the conference finals. Looking out east, I agree with a lot of things you guys said. I'm actually not as high on Brooklyn as most people are, just because Kyrie and Durant looked good in the preseason, and like they're just gonna get buckets. I know that, but I don't trust their health. They've never. I mean, I can't remember the last time those guys had like a full healthy season, and it's just tough. They're both getting older. Durant's now 32, off an Achilles injury. That's like the worst injury to have in sports. So I think the Bucks are definitely gonna make this like 100%. I'm gonna pick a player as good as Giannis. I think he's gonna be better than last year. There's no way that he's gonna fall apart again. So
how could he though? How could he get better? Tell me. So tell me what that looks like.
I think matchups. I think they're not gonna run into the Heat as early as they did last year. I think Drew Holiday will be actually a big help. And I don't think that Middleton can play as poorly as he did in the playoffs. Overall, he had that one game where he beat us and he turned into Kobe.
He had 2 really good games.
But overall, like even in the Magic series, he was not good. So I think Middleton will be better. I think Giannis is going to be better. Even if you compare the last game that Giannis played when it was like win or go home, he was going in and dunking every time before he twisted his ankle and was out. And I was like, oh my gosh, we actually cannot stop him, even though we keep saying we think we can stop him. So I think the Bucks will be in the conference finals, and I do think the Miami Heat will be similar to John. Last year, I picked Milwaukee in the finals against the Lakers. So this year, I'm gonna pick Milwaukee over Miami to reverse jinx them. And so Miami's actually gonna make it. But anyway, Milwaukee's gonna make it, and we're gonna get LeBron versus Giannis, and I think the Lakers are gonna win it again.
All right. So my question, I don't think I said that. Maybe I did. But Lakers, I think everyone agrees there. But I guess my thing, Alex, is you're just relying on, Middleton working on his game in the off season and not having a stinker in the playoffs. And maybe Giannis gets to the mid-range. And it's actually funny. Barack Obama was on the Bill Simmons podcast, and they were asking him questions. And he's like, everyone says Giannis needs to get a 3. Giannis doesn't need a 3. He needs to get the mid-range. So, I guess, Alex, what I'm saying is we have no reason. Like, there's no – unless we're just assuming internally that players are going to get better. But remember what that looked like in the bubble. And maybe the bubble was just too much and they didn't have their home court advantage. So that accounts for 1 or 2 games. But are they really not getting – are they really that much better now?
Giannis will have a better playoffs than last year. Book it. It doesn't matter. He's going to have a better playoffs because he's going to be hungrier. He's going to be more desperate.
So Bam Adebayo is having a worse playoffs is what you're telling me.
No, I actually do think that Jay Crowder was the primary defender on Giannis the whole series. We didn't throw Bam on him. Bam was always the help guy or maybe a play
Switch.
here or there. There'd be a switch, which was actually a huge help. The fact that we have Bam who can switch on. Most guys can't do that. Jay Crowder is going to be a huge loss for the Heat. That's now it's like looking at our team like logically. I think we're going to miss Jay Crowder one unless KZ Okpala turns into like a stud.
We desperately need KZ or Precious to be ahead of schedule.
Yes, so we need.
There's a trade. There's a trade to make as well, though, guys.
What, Harden?
Don't forget that.
Yeah.
No.
So
I'm
anyway,
talking about an Iguodala Crowder trade.
Okay.
Come February.
Okay,
Yeah,
so anyway, those guys. So we're gonna miss Crowder, and I think I'm betting on Giannis and Middleton playing better. That's one thing. And Drew Holiday, I was talking before about having 2 top 25 guys for the Wizards. Drew Holiday's probably he's got to be at least top 40. You have 3 top 40 guys. Like, defensively, that's a tough team to score on. And I just don't see a guy as good as Giannis not making the finals for 3 straight seasons when you really should.
So, for me,
well, that's the thing.
The whole Milwaukee thing is just really interesting. I think Milwaukee is legitimately one of the most – it feels like it's boring, but I think Milwaukee is one of the most interesting teams to watch this year. And I think it's for 2 reasons. One is they have no depth. They have no depth at all.
They really don't.
Maybe
Giannis will play over 35 minutes this year.
But that's the next point that I'm going to get at. So their starting 5 is relatively good, right? It's Drew, it's DiVincenzo, who I'm higher on than I think some people are. I don't think he's a great shooter yet, but as a 5th guy, he's fine, whatever. Middleton, Giannis, and then Brooke. That's fine. And then you've got like Torrey Craig and DJ Augustine and Bryn Forbes, who I actually kind of like as a shooter, Bobby Portis, like whatever, right? So they're not deep. My big thing, and like this is why I don't think they win this year, but I think next year is going to be really, really interesting. I think the biggest decision the Bucks needed to do was to get Giannis to come back. I agree. The second biggest decision in like what I think this franchise's history is, I think it's coming up. It's what do they do with Mike Budenholzer? I think that he is.
Yeah, you gotta get rid of him.
I think he's the biggest problem, and I don't think that he necessarily cannot fix it. Like he might be able to fix it. His biggest thing is he's always been like this. This was his criticism in Atlanta. Is he doesn't make adjustments. And like to get like specifically like basketball nerdy is like the Bucks did every team in the regular season, and it's why the Jazz always fail in the playoffs too. They need to do this too. You have a big time defensive center. So what you do is you play a drop scheme where essentially like the big man gets screened and then he drops to like the paint and you give the point guard a chance to maybe hit a pull-up jumper, but like you're defending the paint at all times, but you're not switching, right? And the Bucks do that just as much as anybody. It's why the Heat used to do it with Myers Leonard. Mm-hmm. That's what the Heat stopped doing when they stopped playing Myers Leonard because in the playoffs you can't do that as much.
Can't leave these guards open.
The players are way better. The scheming is way better because you're playing 4 to 7 games in a row rather than the second night of a back-to-back in the middle of February. Like it's not the same, So, but the Bucks never stopped doing that. The entire series they gave us those shots, and that's
Jimmy made him pay.
The Heat made 1,000,000 threes in that series because they would drop down, and that's why I think Giannis is best as a stretch 5, which is what I said. Right, as like a small ball 5. And then have Giannis be the guy that now you can switch everything. Is Bud going to do that? I don't know. If he does, who's that going to be? Are you starting Torrey Craig? They're not starting. Are you finishing with Torrey Craig?
At the 4, are you saying? Or are you saying?
Yeah. Are you finishing
just bump down to the 4, Oh, Bobby.
Okay, but then who's the 3?
You throw Bryn. Well, Bryn Forbes is probably their best shooter off the bench. So you go Forbes, DiVincenzo, who's the other guy who we're missing?
Drew.
Middleton. That's honestly not a bad lineup.
Okay, but now you're having Bryn Forbes close playoff games.
I wouldn't sleep
That's
on
my
him.
thing.
I wouldn't sleep on him. He's your.
I
if you're
forgot
gonna
about him until I mentioned him 5 minutes ago.
That's what I said. Oh, I like him. He's a good shooter, and I think defensively they're not giving. I mean, it depends who they run into. You know, if you're playing a
No,
team,
yeah.
Eric
And
Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra is who you're running into. The road goes through Miami.
guys,
Whether it's the conference finals or the semis.
Guys, I don't want to say last year was not lightning in a bottle, but here's one thing I will say is Dragic was huge for us. Do we anticipate Dragic playing as well?
No, but our 20-year-old stud is going to become better as a 21-year-old.
Yeah, but all right. Well, then I mean, there's still some discrepancy.
And
because he was
Bam
a
is
stud
better.
last, you know what I'm saying?
And Butler's going to do his thing. And KZ's going to be better. And Duncan's going to be better. And we're young. We should not be worse than we were last year.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
would you guys be shocked? And I'm thinking about this now because Eli, you just outlined how they aren't deep, but they're not going to be playing that starting five way more minutes for the whole regular season. So I don't know why everyone's thinking they're going to be the undisputed 1 seed. Honestly, the 1 seed should be the Heat.
It's a regular
They
season.
got the system, right? I know it's regular season 1 seed. It should
they
be
don't,
the Heat.
they don't have to
Should be the
like
Sixers.
they can play that way in the regular season and still be fine. Which is why I think in the regular season I still think
Well, depth though. What about depth?
No, I'm saying they're gonna have to play the guys on their bench. You know,
Yeah,
Giannis will play the whole first, and at the beginning of the second quarter, the scrubs are gonna go in. And
yeah, but Giannis is just so much better than everybody else he's gonna face, like on a nightly basis, not every single night. Of course, he's gonna play LeBron twice, whatever. Like the Bucks are gonna be fine. I think the Bucks are locked as a 1 seed.
They're fine, but I don't know about a 1 seed.
Throw
But
some money in the Heat for the 1 seed.
Honestly, one of my other favorite bets that I'm thinking of putting on. I haven't done anything yet besides Oklahoma City. Milwaukee over, which is the opposite of what you're gonna say.
Wow, yeah. All right, well, good luck with that one.
Give me the Brooklyn Nets under.
Speaking of betting, though, why don't we get into MVP odds? There's a lot of good ones here. I think we're all in agreement. Luka is the favorite. That's what Vegas says because we know the voters are going to have some Giannis fatigue, and it happened with MJ the year they had to give it to Malone, and then of course MJ beat him up in the playoffs, and we think that's what could happen here. No one's gotten 3 straight since Larry Bird. Giannis is second favorite after Luka. Luka's 4-1 odds. Giannis is plus 425. From my quick Google search, Steph Curry, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, and then down the list, and you get Damian Lillard, some of those other guys. Who do you guys like to win the MVP? And then the second question is, whose odds do you like the most? Eli, why don't you go first?
Okay, so Luka is the favorite, and it makes sense. Like I think it makes sense. So if I had to pick one, I would say Luka. But the 4 guys that kind of stick out to me for like my favorite odds, and I'll go from like least likely to most likely. I know we might talk about this other guy in a second, but from what I hear from John, the way he talks about the Sixers, I don't think Joel Embiid is a horrible pick. He's probably my least favorite that I'm going to mention. That's why he's lowest. But by the same logic of why John believes the Sixers are so good, and even though I'm not as high on them, I think there is a path with more spacing around the team that Embiid just has a monster year. Jokic is Embiid is plus 4,000, by the way, just to say the odds, at least that I found on DraftKings. Jokic is plus 2,200, and I like him. I think, like I said, I don't think Denver is gonna, fall back as much as some people might think they are. Apparently, the bubble showed how unbelievable the tandem of Murray and Jokic can be, going forward. He might have to play a little more minutes with Grant not there. Like they don't have another big man as much. I know I like Michael Green, but whatever. So I like Jokic. Probably my favorite bet of them all is Dame at 1,500, plus 1,500. I think Portland is going to be.
This could be his year.
I think it could. I think Portland's team fits really well around him. They kind of always have, but now with Covington, I think Covington is going to be big. He's a big switchy defender, big-time help defender. Nurkic is back fully healthy, and I think Nurkic is one of the more underrated guys in the league. And if we saw anything from like February onwards all the way into the bubble until he got hurt in the first round, is like Dame might be able to take even another step, which would be awesome. And then the 4th guy that I want to talk about that I think is kind of interesting, I don't like it because of how high he is, but I'm kind of shocked that he's that high. but it's just intriguing. I think I'm a little higher than John. I think it was John that was trashing the team earlier, but I really don't think Steph Curry is that crazy. He's
Yeah.
higher than I thought he would be. So maybe
He's my pick for scoring title.
Yeah,
what do you mean by not crazy? You think it's not crazy to have him that high?
To see him win the
I think he really, really could win it. Because one thing that you said a little earlier,
but you have to be. Don't you have to be a top team to win it?
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I don't love it because I don't think the Warriors are going to be. I think they're going to be better than you think, right? I just think I think we're forgetting how good Steph Curry is.
He's so damn good. I was watching him dribble in the preseason. I forgot. Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness.
We are genuinely forgetting how good he is.
We are. Really quick, this could be a year where, in 2017, Westbrook, they had the 7th seed, but his stat line was just so crazy, and he was just so incredible to watch that you have to give it to him. And
Harden should have won it that year. Just saying.
Harden should have won it, but you look at, all right, let's say they have Giannis fatigue. We LeBron and Davis, we just, we're putting them out. We don't think they're going to win it. Let's say the Mavericks aren't as good, and maybe Doncic. Let's see if Doncic just misses 15 games from injury, whatever. Something happens. I could see a path where Steph Curry averages 30 and they give it to him. But actually, what's probably more likely is that Luka's just going to average a triple-double, and they're going to have to give it to Luka anyway. But yeah, I do see the Steph Curry path as well.
And the final piece of that path, though, is I don't think the Warriors are going to be that good. I agree with you guys there. Again, I think I'm a little higher. But I don't think it's I think their ceiling is higher than I think we give them credit for.
It's probably 5 or 6 is their ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think they reach their ceiling is the point that I'm getting at, which is why I don't think he ends up winning it. But I see the path of a dynamic offense, a switchy defense with the side Steph. Steve Kerr is an unbelievable coach. What if Wiseman comes in and is a legitimate NBA center? I see the path where it could happen. I wouldn't bet on it, and that's why I don't think it's Steph is going to actually.
They have a solid starting 5. It's a talented group.
Yeah, I mean Wiggins and Oubre are good
players.
Wiggins
could be most improved player.
If Green is back to normal, he's really good. Obviously, Steph is one of the 5 best players in the world. I just see it, and I think it'd just be interesting.
Yeah, I guess mine. I look at it. Luka, I love. That should be the pick. Earlier last year, I was arguing it with Alex before, of course, he got injured and whatnot. The Mavericks fell off. For that reason, I'm not making that bet because of the fact that I know he could get injured at one point in the season. I'm not overthinking Giannis, and I think if I had to really just put gun to my head, I think Giannis does what he does one more season, and no matter who the second best player is who has that good of a season, I really do think winning matters. And because the Lakers are going to be the best team, LeBron and AD do cancel each other out. That's just what happens. I think fun odds. Harden, I think that's fun. He's been what? Listen, hear me out. He's been top 2 in voting, or top 3 last year. But before that, top 2, every year for from 2015 on, pretty much. So I think that, let's say he gets a trade to Miami, to the Sixers, to wherever. He's that guy. He's still an MVP dude. He's gonna get like you said, Eli. He always gets his body in shape. He gets ready for the season. Yeah, he's screwing around in the preseason, but that's something he cares about. He knows that he's a player that's better than in his head. He knows he's better than just a one-time MVP because he thinks he should have won some more. So I think he's coming into the season like that. If he's on the Heat, Alex, that if they're a top team, he could win it. And I just think wherever he gets his trade, it's going to matter. And other than that, I don't know. Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, those guys are going to be on good teams. I don't know how
Kevin Durant I kind of like. Kawhi, I don't think he's going to play nearly enough to care.
Yeah, neither.
Same with LeBron. So that's why going down.
Durant's going to play enough with that Achilles?
Yeah. I mean, I just think I think he might play a little more because they're going to want to build chemistry and actually play together. And then I also just think Durant is going to look better in the regular season. And it's the shock factor. It's everybody knows Kawhi is good in his game. Not that it's not good, but it is a little boring. A lot of it is story-wise too. And Kevin Durant coming back from this injury, playing a lot on this fun team, plays a little more than expected and is really, really good. Why not? Yeah. I don't love it for all the reasons you guys said, but I think the path is more likely than Kawhi, who's just kind of boring and isn't going to play a lot. As good as he
Yeah.
is, it's not a knock on the player.
Yeah, and
story.
Eli, I also liked your picks. Dame, guys that are lower down there, Jokic and Murray and Donovan Mitchell. There's a lot of guys down there. The one that I
Don't
like,
sleep on Bam.
Yeah, not sleeping on Bam. Take my victory lap on the whole Sixers thing. I love Ben Simmons. The odds I found were 150 to 1. Eli, you said you found them like 100 to 1. But
Yeah, on
basically,
DraftKings right now, right now, it's 100 to 1, but still
100 to 1 odds. I mean, that's crazy. To me, there's a real scenario where they're a really good regular season team, and he's the point guard. He's the guy running the show. And everyone looks at Embiid and Simmons and the same, maybe similarly to LeBron, AD, that maybe they're going to cancel each other out. But I think it's more so not to say they're going to be this good, but a LeBron Wade dynamic where I think LeBron was more so running the show, so he won those MVPs. Wade was great, but he was just his knees weren't as good. I think Embiid is more. I think for them to be as good, for my prediction to come true, that they're going to reach their ceiling. I think it needs to be Simmons running the show and being awesome, averaging a near triple double and playing great defense. And Embiid's he's going to be in and out from on night to night. He might not be playing it on back to backs and whatnot. So that's why I like Simmons as the really good odds, 100 to 1. Give me those odds right now.
I agree. One tiny thing against Simmons, though, is I think narrative matters a lot, and I just don't necessarily see like the fun surprising or not surprising, but just
really.
I don't, and I think the thing that I think is going to go against him, and it kind of stinks, and I don't think it should, is if he doesn't develop a 3-point shot, he's still just going to have haters, and it's not fair. And it's not fair.
If Seth Curry,
him.
I know, but if Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, if he's assisting all those three, don't forget about it more. And Alex knows this. I'm the first one to say, as good as he is at everything, he needs to develop at least a mid-range, whatever. But
he doesn't.
He's awesome, and that
I agree. I don't think he. Well, a mid-range pull-up game, I think, is what he really does need, so that it's not just him barreling towards the basket, as amazing as he is at that. I don't really care that much about the 3-point shot, whatever. But I'm just saying, in terms of the public narrative, is if he's not shooting, if he goes through another season where he only takes I think he took 3 threes last year or something, probably a half-court shot or whatever, I think the narrative is still always just going to be, and it's not fair. I'm playing devil's advocate. It's not fair, but I think that people are going to look at it and be like, how good is he really? Blah, blah, blah. Unless they're just a beyond dynamite, 1 or 2 seed, which again, I'm lower than you are.
I think
so that makes sense for you, but that's just my 2 cents.
So I guess I'll say I'll pull at your heartstrings a little. I'll pull at your heartstrings a little bit, Eli, and talk about a surprise MVP that we saw in a different sport in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, that was someone where preseason, everyone would have said, oh, the narrative, no. But then by the end of the season, the narrative was so strong that it was how could Lamar not win? Of course, he had an insane statistical season. They were 14-2. They were amazing. But I still think if he's the leader of that team, he's an unconventional type of player. I think if he's a leader of that team and they're a high 1 or 2 seed, I could see it being similar to Lamar, where at the end of the year, we're no, everyone has the Giannis fatigue and the Harden and the LeBron fatigue. He's the new guy. Let's go for it. So maybe he's most improved player. Maybe he's not MVP, but that's my point there.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying with the comparison, but at the end of the day, Lamar, the thing is, Ben's 3 is Lamar's throwing, but Ben still might not hit threes. Lamar threw for 36 touchdowns and had the highest touchdown percentage. So he did do that. And that's a different argument, but whatever. So
yeah, I like the analogy there. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this has been an extremely long episode, but of course, this is much worth it. We had to get this NBA preview in. Why don't we take our juicy NBA preview? Why don't we take, John, 2 minutes? We have Eli on the show. This is the second time he's been on, but it also happens that Eli and I are playing against each other in fantasy this week. So let's do a little fantasy corner. I don't even know why I'm bringing this up because it's a little bit of a bummer for me, but
not yet.
To give people some context, Eli won our championship last year. His team is the Old Mill Grill. They won, and this year he of course
shout out Zach Kimmett.
Shout out Zach Kimmett. Shout out Nick Kimmett. He is the defending champ, and he was the 1 seed. I'm the 4 seed. I got into the playoffs and behind Patrick Mahomes and Dalvin Cook. But this week I had a few tough decisions. with me and Eli made a midseason trade he had Myles Gaskin, and I gave him basically the trade was
J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins for Myles Gaskin. That was roughly the trade. I also got Younghoe Koo. That was why it was a great trade for me. Anyway,
Is that
Gaskin,
working for you?
of course, gets COVID. He gets COVID, so he couldn't have his revenge game against his former team. And I had some decisions to make. Ultimately, I did not play two guys, Melvin Gordon and Salvin Ahmed, who is Gaskin's backup, and they combined.
They're backups in college too. They both went to the same school.
Oh, really? I didn't know that actually. That's sick.
Washington.
They combined for 45 points on my bench. And now we're looking at it. The only player that's left to play is Juju Smith-Schuster for Eli, and Eli's down 10 points. So I need Juju to score less.
The fun thing that I texted in our fantasy group chat today was that if Juju tonight has 5 catches and 54 yards, Eli loses to Alex by 0.02 to go to the championship round next week.
Oh my goodness.
So Eli, what's your prediction for Juju tonight? Is he gonna get you over whatever is it, 5 or 10.5 or
You need
points?
10.5 on the dot. I think 10 point.
Oh
I'm down
my
like
goodness.
10.46, whatever. He's going to finish tonight. Remember the number: 6 catches for 71 yards. For a total
Please
of,
no.
I actually forget how many points that is. I did the math this morning and I forget. It's like 13 or something. But enough to win, and I will be moving on to the championship again. And by the way, real quick, Alex, you talk about your roster decisions as if it means anything. First of all, that's how fantasy football is won. Second of all, if you want to play the what if game, I benched Marvin Jones, who had 27.5.
Yeah,
If
but
I had him instead of Juju, it's over.
were you ever gonna play Marvin Jones?
Yeah, dude, Marvin Jones has been awesome.
Juju? Over Juju?
No, I was thinking.
Awesome, but would you really ever play him over Juju?
I was thinking between him and honestly, it was Juju. It was him, Juju, and JK. Which two would I start? And either way, I would have won no matter what if I had picked Marvin.
But here's the thing:
And-
I benched Melvin, and Melvin's always in my. But every time I bench him, he just balls out.
Yeah, I was so shocked when you benched him. But the one last thing that I want to say, just to give my own team and my general manager skills a shout out, is you talk about this trade as if you won.
Bro,
When
I
it
won
mattered,
the trade.
When it mattered, what happened? I traded for a future guy, J.K. Dobbins, who just put up 15 points again. Your guy didn't play, and this kicker that you keep talking about scored one more point than the kicker you traded me.
So, whoa. All right, if we add up, by the way, I can't even open this can of worms, Eli, because for like the first 3 weeks that I had Younghoe Koo, he outscored JK. Or the first 4 weeks, he outscored JK Dobbins. So
it was a future deal, and I knew that.
And I knew it was a future deal too for Myles Gaskin, and I knew I was going to get Gaskin in the playoffs. But guess what? Guess what the biggest fluke of this all is? A pandemic and the coronavirus, and you can't even act like you knew Myles Gaskin was going to get coronavirus.
The same thing happened with Dobbins. Dobbins got COVID and missed the game too.
Okay, but it's not the
playoffs. Happened
earlier. But it's not in the playoffs. That's what I'm saying. The playoffs is when it counts.
You slept on Dobbins because you didn't understand the future value, and then now I got a kicker that scored the same amount of points and a legitimate starting running back, and your guy's on the bench.
No, I might not even have been here without Younghoe Koo. So you put me in this position. Yeah, you know what?
That's your fault. I had the 1 seed. I didn't need a kicker.
I'm sending bad juju to Juju. It's because
you know what? I'm sorry, Eli. I'm usually against my brother, but tonight I am rooting for Juju I'm rooting for Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson to go off and to take all those receptions away because I was wrong.
Because everybody hates the best. Nobody wants to see the best win.
I was one Robert Tonyan fluke away from making the playoffs this year, and that's because you started Robert Tonyan on that one night where he had 33 points, and Aaron Rodgers forgot that he had other receivers, and he just kept throwing it to Tonyan.
Is it a fluke, or is that exactly what general managers do? Not to mention the fact that Tonyan has a touchdown in 5 straight games.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Top tight end.
I dropped him in my other league, and right after I dropped him, every week since he's had a touchdown. So
oh my goodness.
Five scores in a row as my starting bid.
Insane. All right, well, Eli, I would wish you best of luck tonight, but I'm not going to do that because I want you to lose. So anyway, guys, thank you for listening. Eli, this was a great time. Appreciate you coming on as always, man. This was awesome. And really pumped for the season to start.
And tomorrow night, first games.
That's
Thank
right.
you guys for having me, and let me know whenever, and I'm more than willing to come back on.
Absolutely. Maybe we're
Yeah,
gonna have
we'll-
to. We're gonna designate a
James-
special segment of the
We
show.
will. When James Harden gets traded to the Heat, we'll talk about the Heat ceiling.
Bring it on. I'm ready. No ceiling, baby.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Have a good one as always. Go Heat.
Go Heat.
Go Heat.